faith stories.
My now wife Chelsea was like, "Hey, you're coming to church with me on Sunday," and I was like, "All right, I've been looking at the Bible. Let's do this."
Fishing memories.
When I first started, I was just fish, focus on the fish. And I see the kid catch a fish, I'm like, good job, perfect, awesome. And then he goes up there and I'm like, we're catching slot snook. And this kid's up here going, oh, the breeze. I'm like, this is exactly what it's about.
Meaningful conversations.
You have to stay in the Word. You have to have a good support system. You have to know what the end goal is. You have to know who God is.
Positivity. This is the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Your hosts, Cam Steele.
If your identity is you're an angler, whenever you're not doing well in the water, that's whenever you can't be content.
And Robert Randolph.
And his timing is perfect. We might not always agree with it, and we might not always understand it at the moment.
Bring you interviews with some amazing guests from the fishing community and discuss all things to do with fishing and their faith. Welcome to the family.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we have a really exciting show for you lined up this week. But Robert, how are things going? Have things mellowed out any at all?
Nah, it's kind of the same thing. But we, we're coming off of a long weekend, so we went to the beach and kind of relaxed for a little bit. And so I didn't fish at any. I was going to carry the kayaks and decided against it just for the sake of not having to pack everything up. And I was just, I'm going to relax and maybe I'll go surf fishing. But I didn't even do that. We set the house and went to the beach and rode some bicycles around and played cornhole and hung out with the kids and had a good time. So pretty relaxing weekend, but haven't gotten out on the water any, but saw lots of pictures from the coast this weekend and a lot of big wahoo, offshore wahoo. So that's definitely was a highlight for people that were offshore out there off the coast of North Carolina. So it was exciting to see. I saw some huge fish that were caught this weekend. So that was fun to follow along with on social media, but that's about as close to fishing as I got. What about you?
Same. I have not done any kind of fishing. Friday, we had a massive storm come through in the middle of the workday, right towards the end of it for us. I looked down at my phone at the radar. We had this little tiny cell, and then 10 minutes later, I looked again, and I was just a wall of purple on the radar coming towards us. We had about 6 inches of rain dropped on us in 15 minutes. Yeah. And our storm drains just could not keep up with it at work. We had our parking deck had geysers at every storm drain. Like it was moving the 100-pound manhole covers with us standing on top of them. Like it was a lot of water. And like backed up 3 stories into some of the buildings from the roof drains. Like we were dealing with leaks in almost every tenant. It was insanity. Yeah. So that was fun. And then we had good family get together Monday for Labor Day. And then the boys went back to daycare / preschool this week. So it's Theo's first time getting dropped off for that. So he's done great, but that's probably because it was me dropping him off and not mom. But we, everything's going all right here. Did you have any kind of announcements or anything like that before we jumped into it?
No, man, let's rock and roll.
All right. Well, let's thank Get Outdoors and then we'll jump into it.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on the water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or visit them online at shopgetoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
All right, and before we jump into the interview, I did want to go ahead and give a shout out to Naqua, Omnia, Jade's Jigs, Mr. B, and Savior for what they do. We just thanked Get Outdoors, Pedal and Paddle, but I wanted to just give them a shout out real quick. But every so often we like to have a returning guest come on and kind of do more of a topical episode instead of, the kind of initial interview that we have. And this week is one of those recurring guests that we love to have on. So I'm going to say at least once a week, my 3-year-old son asks, Daddy, can you turn on the fishing song? And it took me a while when he first started asking for it to figure out what he was looking for. But whenever my 3-year-old son asks for the fishing song, what he is asking for is the Tackle Talk podcast. And this week we have on Andrew Hayes from the Tackle Talk podcast, one of, if not the premier bass fishing podcast that you can get a hold of. So Andrew, welcome back, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to change my podcast name to The Fishing Song. You're going to fire it up next Tuesday. It's just going to say The Fishing Song. That's so cool. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's fun to be back on again.
So if there's anybody who has not listened to the Tackle Talk podcast yet that's listening to this and is just getting introduced to you, just kind of let them know what Tackle Talk is.
Yeah, we're pretty much your middle of the road fishing show. We're coming up on, it's crazy to think about, next month will be 5 years of the show. And it's every Tuesday. We put out a new episode. It's kind of a potluck on what you're going to get. You could tune in some weeks and it could be an interview with a biologist or a pro or someone from a company. And you could tune in the next week and it's your top 5 tips for frog fishing. You could tune in the next week and it's a gear review on a rod or a reel or things like that. So we really just try and kind of be a little bit of everything to everybody and, kind of be what we originally wanted in a fishing show a long, long time ago, before podcasts were like really popular and there weren't really any out. It was just kind of what I wish I would have found and I didn't find it at the time. So we just kind of made it and we're still going.
And when Andrew says, middle of the road, what he means is if he were in a genre that had, a larger population, he'd be doing it for a living.
I mean, what, like, my favorite thing about the show is that, I guess for me, middle, like when we started the show, if there was fishing content out there that was like long form audio or something, it was either so introductory that it was just like, it missed everybody because they're like, dude, I know what a Texas rig is. I know what, a finesse jig is or whatever. And it was that simple, or it was all this tournament talk that just goes over most people's heads. And they're just like, where's the stuff for normal dudes? Like that. I just, I go out a couple weekends a month, or I'm still learning. Like I'm somewhere in the middle. I think 90% of people who are out there fishing that want fishing content are somewhere in the middle. They're not the guys that are right now, pulling their hair out, losing their mind over this obscure rule that Bassmaster just released today. And they're also not the people that need to see for the 10,000th time how to tie, a uni knot or something. They're somewhere in the middle. So that's kind of, sometimes I feel like those people get ignored by fishing media and it irks me sometimes. So I think you guys do a good job of that too. I think grassroots podcast stuff really has done a good job of filling that hole that traditional fishing media is kind of like ignored.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'll add on to that and just say from day one. So Andrew, I don't know how much you know about me, but 5 years ago, I was running my own lawn care landscape company. So I rode lawnmowers all day long. And all I did was listen to fishing podcast content, other podcast content. And when your show came out, from day one, obviously it was very well thought out. It was very well planned. And you definitely had a target audience. You had a plan. You had, it's not, kind of like most podcasts, kind of like this podcast that you're on now, is like, you know what, I think I'm going to do a podcast, and then we're going to start out and we're just going to go with it, and we're going to see where it takes us. And you start out with a minimal expectation, and then it kind of grows, and you kind of find your niche and do that. But from day one, this has been something that sounds very produced, but not overproduced. You know, you still have that grassroots touch, but it is a well put together. And I think from day one, the planning of that, I don't know how long you were in the planning stages before you actually released that out. But kudos to you for setting that up. 6 years ago, it probably was at least a year of planning and putting it together as well as it sounds, and as well as you pulled that off. And literally from day one, I haven't gone back and listened to the first ones.
Don't do it.
Well, I'm sure it's hard to listen to yourself, but from from a consumer standpoint, and from me listening to it, what I remember of the first ones is exactly what it sounds like today. So, kudos to you for the homework you did on that, and the planning stages, and putting that together well. And I think it's been well received, and I think you filled a definite hole that needed to be filled. And I enjoy it, so I know a lot of other people do as well.
Thank you. Well, yeah, keep that feeling about the first couple episodes in your mind. Don't actually go back and listen to them, because I told someone this like a week ago. When I fire up my phone and I put in like an AirPod or something, for some reason, I don't know, I'm like technically unsavvy when it comes to my iPhone, which is weird. I feel like I'm like 90 years old when I'm trying to get stuff on and off of it. For some reason, there's only one MP3 on this phone in my music, and it's the first episode that we ever did. And so every time I put in my AirPods and I click play, I think I'm going to play like the podcast I was just listening to or something, and it fires up the first episode of Tackle Talk, and it's just every time it's like nails on a chalkboard, because the audio is not what it is now. The intro, like everything, I wasn't as prepared as I am now, and there's a lot of uhs and ums and pauses, and it's just every time. But it is a little bit of a reminder of like, okay, don't go back to that, right? Like keep pushing forward. So yeah, just I like what you just said. Just don't go back and actually fact check that, because it won't sound as good as you think it does.
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the first episode was talking about how trash mushrooms heads were.
Yeah, how bad Z-Man's terminal tackle hooks are. And I stand by that. I haven't bought shrooms heads in so long. Like just the regular shrooms heads. I understand that they're light wire hooks and they're made for a light wire technique, but holy cow, you look at a log, you look at a rock, anything, it's done. It's bent out. It's terrible. You're going to lose so many of them. Yeah, there's so many better options now. So yeah, that's a good example, I guess, of what the show is, right? We talk about what we like and what we don't like. And I think that's the fun part is, just as much as there is room for positive talk about, products in the world, there's also room for constructive criticism. And if you actually don't like something, not just trashing it, but saying why you don't like it, right? Why, if I was a consumer and I was spending my hard-earned dollars, why would I buy this or why would I not buy this? So I think that's a fun part too.
So how do you come up with a new topic every week?
To be honest, man, a lot of times, like, it will be Sunday night and I'll be going to bed and being like, I need to think of something for Tuesday's episode. And so I will just, like, that night when I go to bed, I will just lay in bed and think about what I want to talk about, and I'll just like record it the next day or whatever. But it is not like I know what I'm doing. I do guests now. Guests I book pretty far in advance to try and get, the folks you want to talk to and work with their schedules and stuff. But if it's just a solo episode, it could go from absolutely nothing to fully done show in a day. Like, and that's after work and everything too. But just like from the time I think about the topic I want to do until the time the episode is done, it could be one night to the next night. It's pretty quick turnaround.
That's awesome.
Well, that's another. Yeah, that's another piece too. As you're talking about the guest and the whole guest piece of it is, and I know you've heard this before because I've heard other people that you're interviewing say the same thing, but the questions that you come up with are very well thought out, and a lot of times you can go from somebody that has been interviewed hundreds of times, and you will come up with a question that they've never been asked, and you seem to have a knack for that. Is there a system that you use, or do you go back and research it so much that you know, like, oh, this person has never been asked this? Like, kind of how let everybody into kind of how that works in Andrew Hayes's head and how you come up with questions, because I've heard it time and time again, like, oh man, that's a great question. Nobody's asked me that. And that's one of the things that draws people to Tackle Talk is your interviewing skills.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the cool part about an interview is like my goal with an interview is when I get the chance to talk to someone, and to your point, someone that's been interviewed 1,000 times. Like, you can go on the internet and you can find a billion interviews of the exact same questions of Rick Clunn, Ike Anelli, Bill Dance, Jimmy, like all those people. They've been interviewed a billion times over the years, and it's always like, tell me about this classic. Tell me about this moment where, you got to hold up the trophy for the first time. Tell me about this and that. And it's like, if you get the chance to talk to somebody cool and interesting, I want the chance to have an interesting conversation with them that hasn't been had before. Because otherwise, I'm just rinse and repeating something that someone that's listening to my show can go out and find on the internet already. So instead, I think it's important, if you're going to be interviewing someone, to be intellectually curious and just really try and find those angles where, okay, this could be really fun to talk about. And it's selfish because I want to have a fun conversation with these people. So I don't want to ask them boring questions. I want to have a fun, back and forth. And it is so much fun, to your point, to hear somebody get asked a question and just see them light up, because either you knew some information that they didn't expect you to know. So they know that you've done your research. They know that this isn't just a whim type thing. So I don't know. There's been a bunch of them. Like when we had Denny Brower on last year, one of the first questions I asked him was about growing up in his hometown creek. And I name dropped his hometown creek. And he just like immediately lit up because he's like, no one has mentioned that name of that creek to me in 30 years. How do you know the name of that creek? So that kind of stuff. It's fun. And then it sets the tone. If you can do that from the beginning, then these people start to open up a little bit more and they go, okay, this is going to be fun to talk to this person. It's not just reading question 1 through 10 that they found by watching one of my old interviews, because that's not fun for these people. So I think there's just a little bit of me that says, if I get the chance and the honor to talk to one of these people, I want to do it justice and I want to have a conversation that hasn't been had before, or at least not all the way. There's going to be some things that are going to come up with certain people because you just can't avoid them, and it's why they're so cool. But trying to find your own little angle of those, I think, is a really fun sort of art to interviewing people.
Yeah, and that's something that I had to learn. I wasn't there yet whenever I first started. As a matter of fact, I was one of those people with a list of 10 to 15 questions that I asked every single guest in order. And I mention it all the time. Like, you can go back to the very first episode. Again, I don't recommend it either. Or the very first interview with Chad Hoover, and like, you can hear Chad leading me into another question, like trying to help me out. And I just look down at my paper, go, okay, next question.
Yep. The one thing you can do with that, though, if you are one of those people that wants to prepare, and I'm like that too, I want to have at least an outline of how in a perfect world, I want the conversation to go, because I want to make sure I don't miss pieces that I do want to hit with these people and just get off on a tangent. And then, you end the interview and you're like, oh my gosh, I meant to talk to them or ask them about this and I missed it. So I do kind of have an outline of how I want it to go. But even then, if you need some sort of almost like a script or something to go off of, you just have to make sure that you work on the transition from question to question or topic to topic, because the listener isn't going to be any the wiser if you pull it off smooth enough that you are completely prepared for this whole thing and you had the questions ahead of time. It's just, again, an art of making it sound natural that I think a lot of people have a little trouble with at first, but you've seen it over the past couple of years. The more you do it, the more it becomes natural, and you don't necessarily have to plan out everything because you trust your instinct to have a fun conversation with these people and know where to go next with a question.
Right. And then you take a 3-month break and then you have to learn how to do it all over again.
It's like riding a bike.
But earlier we were talking about coming up with a new episode, like having like a weekly thing where you're going through, you're trying to figure this out. You got all of this editing to do, recording to do, and everything.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about this episode, like for the meat of the episode, is burnout. So how do you battle burnout? So I know for me, like I was pretty transparent about it a few episodes ago whenever we were talking about where we were during our long break. We were like this close. I'm holding up just like a centimeter on my finger there. For those of you listening on the podcast, we were that close to not having a Faith and Fishing podcast anymore, because whenever Theo was born, I was so burnt out on mostly, like we were talking about it in the beginning of the show, like bass fishing culture, and like especially competitive bass fishing culture, that had burned me out so much on just like keeping up with the fishing industry and everything, and then getting burned out on trying to plan a weekly podcast and everything. And so let's dive in there. What do you do to battle burnout?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, and that's something that I probably struggle with a lot, and I try and hide to the best of my ability so people don't really see it. And because I'm one of those people, I don't want to burden other people with my burdens. Like I just want to keep it hidden and let everybody be none the wiser that like all of this other stuff is going on behind the scenes, and just they don't care about my drama. They care about tuning in every Tuesday and having the show that they want to listen to, and that's it. So I do try and keep it separate, but it's tough, man. Like I have a very time consuming regular job. So we were talking before we started recording, where during baseball season, I work for a baseball team. So from April until about 2 days ago, when our regular season ended, I'm working 95 hours a week. Like you're going in at 8 a.m., you're getting home at midnight, 1 a.m., going to sleep for a few hours, waking up, doing it again for 15 days in a row before you get a day that you get to go back to 9 to 5, and that feels like a vacation. So that part is tough in and of itself. And then I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. And when I come home at 1 a.m., what do I want to do? I want to go produce a fishing show, I guess, in my spare time. And my spare time is like midnight to 3 a.m. So yeah, it's, I don't know. You have to have that drive. So I think I don't get burnout on the show because it's that passion project. It's that thing that I'm thinking about all the time, and I want to make better. And also I know there's so many people that count on me to just get my stuff done. Like, pull it together, Andrew. I don't care how busy you are. That show better be there when I wake up on Tuesday. There's so many people counting on it. So you just have to figure it out. So that becomes part of it. I get burnout at work for sure. And the thing I think that's helped me, ironically, with all of my burnout, whether it's at work, whether it's with the show, whether it's with family. I mean, I just had a kid 1.5 years ago too. So I know how you feel. It's a whole world changer. And now if you thought you didn't have time before, holy smokes, get ready. Cause yeah, it's like once you have a kid, everything changes even more.
So you have to.
Yeah. So I understand that too. And I think my biggest way of combating burnout is fishing. Like the actual act of fishing. And I think a lot of people, lose the what's the saying, lose the forest for the trees or whatever it is, where I think people get so caught up with the other things in fishing. They're on the internet right now arguing about forward facing sonar and rules and stuff that has nothing to do with them whatsoever at all. And they're wasting time, they're wasting energy, they're wasting brain power on that thing, and that's stressing them out. Or they're worried about their social media, and they're worried about their TikTok or their YouTube channel or whatever, and you lose sight of what got us all into this in the beginning, and it is the actual act of fishing. So something that's helped me a lot is that everything that I do with fishing, so like the fishing podcast, the reason I chose a podcast is because I didn't want to go out and film myself fishing. I didn't want to ruin that. That's my time. I don't want to worry about camera angles or batteries or SIM cards or audio or making a storyline, or I didn't get the shot, the angle's wrong, the lighting's bad, whatever. I just want to go out and fish. And that is my time to shut my brain off, shut my email off, just go out there and be in nature and just have that decompression time. So I think that's so important. I think sometimes people lose that side of fishing, and which is what got so much of it much of us into it, is the actual fishing part. And now people are so preoccupied with everything else that comes with fishing that the fishing part is suffering. So I think that's a big part for me, is just making sure that I make time for myself, no matter when it is. I mean, there's times in the wintertime where, okay, man, you just worked 12 hours and it's dark outside and it's 20 degrees outside in the winter in Ohio. Put your waders on. We're getting in the river and we're walking 1.5 miles. And you're going to go sawguy fishing at midnight, because that's the time you have to do it. And you need to get out there and fish at some point. So yeah, you have to budget your time and make time, but you have to find that thing that is your release. And ironically for me, that is fishing.
Awesome. Robert, you are going crazy right now with your schedule. How are you battling burnout?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so I'm kind of on the other end of you guys. You guys have small kids, and I'm 50 and have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So how I'm battling burnout is trying to pay for 2 colleges and not go broke. So I think at this point you just deal with, really the goal of getting that stuff paid for and getting to the other side of it. And I don't wish any of it to be over now, because I enjoy every second of, Ryder, who's a 16-year-old who still lives at the house. But, my older son is a junior at NC State. My daughter is a freshman at UNCW. So this is her first 3 weeks away from home. And I don't wish to be done with that, but I do want to get all that stuff paid for. And that's really how I battle burnout, because when I go and work for, usually I'm going in at 6 and I'll leave at 6 is my normal schedule now. Whereas last year at this time, I'd go in at 6 and I'd be done at 1 o'clock right after lunch. And I would have probably fished for 2 or 3 hours during the day at work, because I just had an easier job, same company, just a different job. And now some things changed, and luckily I do make a little bit more money for the extra hours that I'm working, but just trying to get that paid for, and just knowing that I'm helping my kids get further to where their goals are, and trying to balance all of that, plus some travel ball mixed in, plus some kayak fishing tournaments when I can get that. Plus, it was fortunate enough to enable us to buy a place at the beach the last few years. So going down there and being able to get some saltwater fishing in, and that's something I've done throughout my life, but mostly offshore. And now with the kayaks and stuff, chasing the reds and the flounder and the trout on the inshore stuff in the kayak. That's a whole different can of worms. And it's kind of funny, because the first kayak that I bought was an Ascend sit-in for duck hunting. And I went and bought a motor from a guy, and I bought the motor in this mount, and he had it on, I don't even know, a sit on top, really nice, a lot nicer kayak than what my Ascend sit-in was. But I needed a motor to get to duck holes, because that's what I was using for the kayak for at that time. But he told me, he was like, oh yeah, we go to the coast and we fish for reds. He goes, we used to bass fish. He goes, but honestly, man, if you ever go down and fish for reds and trout and flounder, you'll quit bass fishing. And I'm like, man, you're nuts. But I can see how that's possible. Those things are so much fun, and it's such a different, the way I fish for them, I fish for all 3 of those species the same as I fish for bass. So it's the same thing that you're doing, but you learn where to target those at. And I think the not knowing what you have on the line until you get it in, because it can be any of the 3 of those, or it could be something else too. But usually when I'm fishing for bass, I know it's a bass unless, you get a catfish that hits your dang bladed jig. But, but just that's how I'm battling the burnout, is just knowing that the burnout is worth something, and I'm getting my kids on further down the road. And then like Andrew said, mixing the fishing in with it when I can. And then, you know, really for the past 2 months, I've really made a concerted effort to stay off of my phone. Now I still do get on my phone some, but I haven't pulled up on my, it probably has I know it has the time used, but I really need to pull that up from probably 6 months ago to now. And some of it is the job, because my job changed, so it doesn't allow me enough you know, I don't have extra time at work to be on my phone.
Yeah.
And then when I'm not working, I don't want to waste that time. So I found that I'm rarely on my phone looking at social media. So I think that's also helped as well, because now I find myself looking around at other people, and the more I look around, the more all I see is this, and everybody's heads looking down, and they're either looking at their phone or, you know, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about, and what the hot topic is right now is the forward facing sonar and looking down, and what kind of content do these companies want to put out with the tournaments. And so I know that was a long rant to your question about burnout, but I think everybody's going to have their own different way to battle that, but mix of fishing and knowing the burnout is actually worth something. So I'm okay with some of the burnout, and, you know, just getting on further down the road, and every day is one step closer to moving all the way to the beach.
I hear you. So it's interesting. So I had 3 different things that I was like, these are the 3 things that I would, somebody comes to me saying, hey, I'm struggling with burnout. These are the 3 things that I would tell them. One is make sure you have a Sabbath. Or as, you know, Andrew says, take time to go fishing, spend time for you. So Andrew covered that one. The other one was something that I learned whenever I got my first sales job, and was like, how in the world does anybody get through this? And they were like, this is how you get through it. You remember your why. So like what Robert was saying, you remember, this is why I'm doing it, and this is what drives me. And then Robert touched on my other one at the end there, is connect with others. If you can get plugged in and get connected with other people, even someone like me who is an introvert, you can still fuel off of other people. Now you may have to recharge a little bit more after you do that. If you're an introvert like me, I'm an outgoing introvert, but I'm still an introvert. So I can go and have fun with somebody, but afterwards I'm like, oh man, I need to go fishing, and I'm not taking anybody with me this time. But yeah, so yeah, that went a little bit quicker than I thought, but I mean, I feel like we nailed it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I just was thinking back to what Andrew said about, you know, why he chose the podcast, because he didn't want to take his cameras, and he didn't want to do that and edit the video. And I think the last 3 or 4 times I've gone fishing in the kayak, even my son asked me, he was like, are you taking your cameras? Are you putting the GoPros up? I'm like, nope, not doing it. You know, I'm not setting all that stuff up. I'm not, you know, and I have I did take it the time that, you know, Mitch and Wiggs and all of us went to the coast, and we caught a lot of flounder, trout, and reds. I did film a lot of that, and I've got some great clips. I've gone back and watched clips of it, but I haven't even brought myself to edit that, because I don't know, you know, and the last time I went, I'm like, well, there's a chance you could catch a, you know, 3 foot long redfish. And I just like, it's not even, it's like I said at the first of the podcast, it's better to not have to even deal with some of that. And I'm just going fishing, and whatever I catch. And now I still have my phone. I may snap a picture of it just so I can say, hey, you know, look at me, look what I caught. But, you know, I think it just all gets convoluted with the original intent of having a lawn chair sitting by a pond and watching the bobber, is how we all, or at least I did most of the time, started fishing. Is just, you're sitting there and looking at that bobber, and that's what you're doing. And you're taking a sandwich and a Coca-Cola or RC Cola or whatever, and you're just sitting out there and decompressing. So
yeah, I think sometimes this generation of people thinks like, if I didn't document it, it didn't happen. Like, if no one else saw it, what was the point in doing it? It's like, that's not the right attitude to have for almost anything, but especially like what we're doing with fishing. Not everything needs to be broadcast to everybody. There are certain things that are just between you, or you and the fish, or you and nature. Like, you're out there taking part in that act. And, you know, I'll bring my DSLR camera with me too, and I'll take pictures. I like photography. I like that kind of thing, but it doesn't interfere with my planning, the cast, the fight, the catch, the gratitude afterwards. It takes half a second for me to put my camera in front of me. I've already got it like on a little mount thing ready to go. You just slap it there, use a little remote, take a photo, pull it off, put it back, and then put the fish back. It takes 10 seconds. But I get a photo that lasts forever. It's a high quality photo, and that's all I need. And we're good if I catch something that's worth documenting, to your point. But I just think everybody has this feeling of, if I don't show my friends, if I don't show the internet, if I don't broadcast it out there, then it was all for nothing. And I think it's like the polar opposite, wrong way to look at fishing.
Yeah. And I mean, really, to put it in the faith context, I mean, when we do that, and I'm definitely not pointing fingers, because I think we all do it to some extent, but having stepped back from that and seeing kind of where I was at a year or 2-3 years ago, trying to put videos out, trying to post things, and you know, that was an idol that I was chasing, and that piece of putting that content out there as an idol that a lot of people get sucked into, and that's, you know, I don't know, it's easy to go down any of those paths and you know, covet things and you know, worship false idols. And I think that is one of it that our society is really, really going to struggle with moving forward. And even being where I'm in a hiring position, hiring people for jobs, man, I mean, it's super tough with, you guys are both a lot younger than me, but you know, looking at people that are coming out of high school and it's like their phone is glued to their hand, and they're going to struggle, you know, in the workplace. And that's, I don't know, hopefully we figure something out moving forward, because I don't know, it's kind of scary.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, Robert, I have yet to put the cameras on my new kayak. Like, I got that kayak in, what was it, March? And the cameras haven't been on it. And like, I found that I enjoyed fishing a lot less whenever I had the cameras on. And I re-listened a while back to the song, it's by Sanctus Real, called "Lead Me," and the lead singer had written it right about the time that he had kind of said, I'm done chasing this. I'm done being the lead singer of the band, and they kind of moved on without him. But he's talking about his family, and the chorus is like his family talking to him, saying, don't leave me hungry for love, chasing dreams, but what about us? And then in the last verse, he's talking to God, saying, asking God to lead him to be a leader in his family. And he says, don't leave them hungry for love, chasing things that I could give up. And that was one of those things where I was like, is this something that I could give up? And is this a dream of mine that I need to give up on? Like, it's this idea of getting on YouTube and trying to do something in the fishing industry, like in a super saturated market with like little to no charisma. Like, am I like, is this something that I need to pursue, or is this something that I need to, you know, give up for my family's behalf and for my behalf and for God's behalf? I mean, And, moving on from that, like it's like, I enjoy going fishing without my camera on.
Well, and it's almost the same thing as sometimes kayak tournament fishing is the same way. Like, I love fishing tournaments. I love the competition aspect of it, but there are days where if you go out and you fish a tournament, it's like you're frustrated, you're pressing, you're trying to catch things, and then the next weekend you go out and there's no tournament, and it's just like you're sitting back. Doesn't matter. You're not trying to have your line in the water at all times and do this, and it's a lot more enjoyable. And it's like, well, why do we even do that? But there's so many other aspects to that whole kayak tournament scene, and camping out and hanging out with your crew. And like, I love all that aspect, but the actual fishing part of it, I have a lot more fun when we're probably not tournament fishing, but I like the other aspects of it so much that I'll probably always do that. I'll probably never win, but that's okay too.
Yeah, everything has its merits. So like Cam, you're talking about like, a show or, producing a podcast or whatever may take away from other things. But at the same point, like, this is your form of outreach and ministry. And how many people have you guys affected with this show and got to open up about their faith and shown people that, these two things, one that is very in your face in fishing, and one thing in your faith and God and that type of thing that seems to be a lot more hidden nowadays, that people aren't as readily open to talk about or to publish out there. Like, this is your way of doing that. So I would kind of say, and it's same thing with tournament fishing, Robert. It's like, maybe I get in a grumpy mood because I'm not enjoying my activity as much, but I'm making friends with these people that I would have never in a million years met or known. And I now have these connections with these people that are worth more than any, third place $1,200 check could be worth. So yeah, everything's got its pluses and minuses. It's just, I think, a matter of life is all about trying to maximize the pluses and minimize the minuses. And if you can do that in a healthy way with whatever your thing is, whether it's podcasts or tournament fishing or, social media or trying to pursue YouTube, like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's just, you have to manage it. And then it gets back to our whole point here about burnout, is you have to prioritize what's most important in your life. If it is getting in the way of taking care of your family and spending time with your family and that type of thing, then okay, there's tough conversations that need to be had. But, managing burnout is different. Everybody has different levels of burnout that they can handle. Like, somebody's burnout might be the other person's like, that was an easy week. What are you talking about? I function on 3 times that much stuff, in a given week. So it's all individual, but it's just a matter of managing your own situations and finding where your priorities need to be and not be.
Absolutely. For sure. All right. Well, I reached out to social media about finding some questions to ask. I asked for what's your favorite questions, and I got some that were what's your favorite questions and some that were not. Before we jump into the what's your favorite questions, there's a couple questions that came through that kind of reminded me of Andrew's mailbag on his show. So since Andrew is here, we'll do something similar and have a couple listener questions that we can answer. One of them is a little more serious than the other. But so on Facebook, Joey Bassraft asked, what is the definition of a fishing kayak?
I would say it's any kayak that has features specifically put on it to enhance an angler's experience. So, like, I don't know, Robert, what kayak you started out with, but you said you had a sit-in Ascend. I started out with a sit-in Ascend too. It was called an A10. It was a blue kayak. It had absolutely nothing on it except an absolute bare bones seat that hurt to sit on, and it was terrible, and it was tippy, just an awful kayak all around. But it was like $250 brand new when I bought it, and it got the job done and got me off the shore. But like, that was not a fishing kayak, because there was absolutely no features on that kayak that not only helped fishing, but there were so many features that made it harder to fish than it should be. So I would say, like, even if you've got a kayak that has built-in rod holders or something that just leads a hint to say this vessel could be used for fishing, then I think that kayak has taken that step to say, okay, we're trying to appeal to anglers here. Obviously, we know what you're going to be doing in this kayak. Now, there's a big difference between a $300 Ascend that has a couple of rod holders in it and a $5,000, PA 14 Hobie, right? But they're all fishing kayaks as long as it's making an effort to appeal and help anglers. That's going to be my answer.
Okay.
I like it.
To be on the fly, that was extremely well done, Robert. You got a definition? Anything you want to add?
No, that's really good. I was kind of thinking of the question on the other end is like, where does the fishing kayak turn into the miniature bass boat? And so
that's where we're at nowadays.
Yeah, I was thinking like more of the PA 14 with the trolling motor on the front and the NK 300 on the back, and like, when is it not considered a fishing kayak anymore? So, and I think that's up for debate, but I was thinking today, because I was on the drive home listening. I was trying to listen to Luke Duncan's podcast, and he had NPFL
Brad
guy on talk.
Fuller.
Yeah, he had Brad Fuller on. That's it. I blanked on his name, but he had Brad on, and so I listened.
He's been everywhere the past few days.
Yeah, I know. I listened to the whole front part of that. I didn't get to finish it. I got home before I got to finish it, but I was just kind of thinking when they were sitting there talking back and forth about fishing, and I'm like, I think it's really a good move. And then I started thinking about kayak fishing, and like, when do you lose the they're talking about kind of the essence of tournament fishing and figuring out the fish and not having forward facing sonar. And then when do you lose the essence of kayak fishing? If you can, like, I have a rear motor and a front motor, two different kayaks, but I can run 15, 20 miles. But when do you lose, like, the go slide it in the back of your truck and slide it down the hill, and I'm going to this place that nobody else can get to? And when do you lose the essence of what kayak fishing is? So I think kind of my answer to that question would be when you have to have a trailer and you can't put it in the back of the truck anymore, then I think maybe it's no longer a fishing kayak. And when you have to trailer it, like at this point, I'm borderline. Like, I could unload it and reload it once per day, but anything more than that, like, I'm not traveling to a different spot in the back of the truck, but I can unload it and reload it in the back of the truck once per day and I'm good. But if I put anything else on my kayak, it may not be considered a fishing kayak anymore.
So I agree with you, Andrew, like from a technical, like, definition standpoint. But I'm going to say, if for me, a definition of a fishing kayak, if it is a kayak and you are fishing out of it, it is a fishing kayak.
I can get behind that.
I mean, like, I know people who fish out of, the $150 like sit inside pelicans that are 9.5 feet long, and they're fishing, like, they stick a fishing rod in between their legs and they paddle out to their spot. Like, that is a fishing kayak at that point. If you were fishing from it, it is a fishing kayak. Now, like you said, some of them have features that will make your life a lot easier whenever you're fishing. Some of them have features that for fishing, but they're so poorly made that you can't use them. So I mean, what demo before you buy it, and if you're serious about it, save your money for an extra couple months and hit the used market and get something that's a little bit more something that's not going to chase you away from the sport before you get a chance to enjoy it. I don't know why I stuck around as long as I did. I started out in a 10-foot sun dolphin. And like, to tell you how chintzy it was, I put a 6-inch hatch in the center of the console. I used a pocket knife to cut the hole.
See, that's the good stuff, though. That's like just quintessential kayak fishing. Is like, if you can't do it with a pocket knife and some PVC, then it's not a mod you need to do. Like, I miss those days where it was just, I'm going to Home Depot with $17 and I'm about to make 2 rod holders, a a mount for my little striker 4. Like I'm gonna make a cart system, like everything, and I'm gonna make this all on $17 at Home Depot.
That's right.
I will say, I wish whenever I had started out. So right now I am 5 minutes away from a Harbor Freight. I wish that I was that close to a Harbor Freight when I first started out kayak fishing.
Harbor Freight is the truth.
All right. So former guest, 2-time guest from the show, Mr. Alex Rudd.
Oh boy.
Gave a question. I think so. I asked for what's your favorite questions, and I think he thought that I was asking him what his favorite question was, because his question was, does a blind turtle run into rocks?
Does a blind turtle run into rocks? Yeah, blind turtle runs into rocks. It's got to. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with Andrew on this. I'm gonna say yes. Yeah, I mean, there's no way you can maneuver around the rocks if you can't see them. So it's got to be a yes.
Blind turtle's got a tough life.
It does. So I know that turtles have a lot of very, very strong senses in other areas other than sight. So I would say that a turtle could maneuver in the water without being able to see. But as soon as that turtle gets up on land, he's running into something. Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna end with some what's your favorite questions. So we will get that started right after this.
It's time for What's Your Favorite, powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. Power that fits in the palm of your hand.
All right, so we've got some listener what's your favorites here. So I've got the list here. So Robert, you can just kind of chime in as you want to, instead of going back and forth with me. But some of these are really good, and they're going to make it into our regular. Maybe this may end up being our make it into our
new list,
like third time list. We've got a first time list and a second time list. So
I like that.
We'll add some of these to a third time list, but I'm gonna say, so that it remains unbiased, I'm gonna leave who asked this question out at first. But your favorite bearded content creator?
Ooh. I'm gonna have to go. We're in the call right now. I have to go Cam Steele.
There you go.
Was that question from Cam Steele?
It was not, actually. It was from the Bearded Paddler, who also has been on the podcast. He said, "Who's your favorite bearded content creator, bearded paddler, or bearded dad fishing?" And I went on. I was like, "He better choose me."
There you go.
I will never ever be in that conversation, unfortunately. This is all we're working with.
Robert is in that conversation during duck season.
I actually had let it. Usually the 1st of September and dove season comes in North Carolina, and that's usually my starting point. And I got done with the weekend and decided it wasn't quite time to go that route yet. So we'll see how long this lasts. And my job, I have to look maybe a little bit more professional than I did last year at this time. So I don't know. It may be tough sledding for the beard this year. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
At least you have the option.
Yeah.
All right. So from Chris Funk, your favorite PFD?
Ooh. I've only had one that I've had 2 versions of it, but it's the same one. It's the one at Bass Pro. I can't remember. I think it's who makes it. Is it Mustang that makes the Bass Pro ones? I can't. It's one of the 2. But yeah, I've just had the regular Bass Pro 24 size, the blue one. That's the only one I've ever used. And I will say I need to buy a better one because it's auto inflate. And I want one that's just manual pull because I have accidentally auto inflated it like 3 times in the past 2 years, and it scares the turd out of me every single time it happens. Last time it happened, we were in the water. My buddy Ryan caught a big fish, so I got the camera out, get out of the kayak, and I'm in like, probably waist deep water, and I get down to get the right angle to catch the right angle of this fish as he's holding it out, and I just dipped down just enough where I guess it hit the sensor on that thing, and it just blew up right in my face, and we both just like looked like someone was shooting at us. We both just jump up. If we had a camera on, it would have been hilarious because we both just panicked, and then I'm just you're sitting there and you just have this giant inflated PFD around you. You're like, oh my gosh. And then every time that happens, it's whatever, $24 for another rearming kit. So I want a manual pull one because I don't ever foresee a situation where I'm going to need the auto inflate where I'm like knocked unconscious or something. Right. I'm not fishing that crazy of stuff and white water systems or anything. So yeah, I ironically probably need to downgrade my PFD because I just don't need the auto inflate feature.
Okay. All right. Your favorite fish in your normal water?
Smallmouth. It's got to be smallmouth. Second, I think I might put muskie above largemouth. It's close. It definitely is. It depends on the day. Right now, it's probably not muskie because the last 3 times that I've gone out, I've got stomped. So we have a very love-hate relationship, and we're in the hate stage right now. So I need a good outing to get back on their good side. But no, I'm a smallmouth guy at heart. There's absolutely nothing better in the world than like just mean river smallmouth bass. It is so fun. They're alphas, I think, even compared to like Great Lakes smallmouth and things like that, because those are more obviously, not chiller, but they're like nomadic, just kind of like hanging out. They're not sitting in, crazy current all day long. And there's these giant muscle of a fish that's sitting there trying to survive all the time because they're so much more aggressive in those smaller ecosystems. So yeah, a river smallmouth is, if I had to fish for one thing for the rest of my life, that's what it would be.
All right. Your favorite fish to travel for?
I want to make sure I get this right before I say, I don't think I've ever traveled for a different species. I don't think I have. No, the only time that I've traveled and caught a different species, my sister used to live in Tampa. So we went down to visit her one time, and I just took my bass stuff and went bass fishing at like the brackish bridges or whatever. I was flipping pylons with a structured jig and stuff like that, and was catching snook that way. That was the only time I've probably ever gone out and tried something different. But no, I need to go out and do more of that. Like on my bucket list is to go down and fish like Miami area for peacocks and that type of stuff. I think would be so much fun. But I'd be lying if I said that I had a favorite different species to travel for, because that would be an imposter thing of me to say because I've never done it.
All right.
Yeah, I want to do the peacocks too. So
be so much fun.
Man, they look so much fun.
They're so pretty, and you get those big 4 and 5 pounders with the big knot on their head. The big males would be awesome, and I would want to go out and do it myself. Like I wouldn't want to go on a charter or anything like that. I just want to bounce around the canals there and fish for them, like I like to fish for bass. I think it'd be awesome.
Drive to North Carolina. We'll fish for reds and flounder a couple of days. Then I think Miami from here. We drove it once. 16. I want to say, something like that. We can do it in a day. Yeah. I think it's like, 14, 16, something like that. Yeah, I know Disneyland we've done a couple times to Orlando is 10. So I don't know how far it is from, or maybe even shorter than that to Orlando. So maybe it's shorter than that, but yeah, we can make a whole trip of it. So
I think it'd be awesome. I've never caught a red either. I've never caught a red. Never caught what are they down there? The little speckled trout things. Yep. Never caught those. What they call that? Is it the Grand Slam or the Inshore Slam?
Yeah, Inshore Slam. Yeah. So a flounder, a red, and a speckled trout. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the Slam in North Carolina. Yeah. And
down south it's probably snook, right?
I was gonna say in Florida, I know you trade the flounder for the snook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time I ever tried to fish in the surf was, it probably would have been like North Carolina or South Carolina. We went there one time, and I tried to fish, and all I caught was catfish in the ocean. I'm like, why are there little, 9-inch to 10-inch long catfish in the ocean, just little saltwater catfish. That was all we were catching.
Yeah. And you do not want to get stabbed by one of those. I can promise you that.
Oh, did you guys know what happened to me like a month ago, right?
I do.
Yeah. Oh, this is my that's as far as my pinky can close anymore. That's it. It's done. It's like it's stuck right there. I took a channel catfish barb all the way through my hand, and it was like this out the other side, and so it cut a couple nerves and stuff in there. So I got a little, but now I just look weird because I can't close my hand.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, that's as straight as I can get mine.
Oh, there you go. What'd you do to yours?
I was born that way.
Oh, okay.
I've got creases on this, or I've got like joints on this hand. I don't even have creases there because I've never been able to bend those joints.
Whoa. Well, that's crazy. We're like we're brothers here then. There we go.
All right. Let's see. Your favorite soft plastic.
Berkeley Pit Boss. Gotta be.
And I'm a fanboy of the show, so I'm gonna say it's got to be the Havoc.
Yeah,
right?
the actual Havocs, like the old ones. I have some around here somewhere. They're probably back in the closet, but yeah, the old Havocs, and you can tell me they're the same mold. You can tell me everything. I don't care. One, I hate the darn slime of power bait. Get it off there. Just give me a normal, dry, soft plastic so that I can rig it right without it sliding all over my hands and trying to thread it on the hook and everything. Just give me a normal soft plastic. But yeah, the old Havocs and the red and black packages were, I've probably caught more fish on those in terms of a soft plastic than any other soft plastic in my life.
I really wish they would bring back the Ike's Devil Spear.
Yes. There'd be so many of those old, like discontinued baits that I guess they probably didn't sell well at the time, but if you brought them back now, or you could just like convince them to give you the molds or something, there's a cult following for some of that stuff that people would eat up.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't brought it back as a chatterbait trailer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah.
There's your next business idea. Discontinued tackle.
Yep. Bring them back. Buy the molds for cheap. Just bring them back. What are your two favorite soft plastics?
Mine is the Missile Baits D-Bomb.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Not the baby D-Bomb, but the
regular,
the regular size D-Bomb in the super bug color.
Have you used the micro yet?
I have, and I really like it. It pairs great with Jade's jigs. So the lead-free finesse tackle they've got, use promo code FNF10 there.
There we go.
Get you a little bit off, but yeah, I do like that one. But the regular size on a Texas rig with a 1 ounce weight is like free weight, not pegged. Like, yeah, it's a killer down here at least. It's a great like sunfish imitator, crawfish imitator, whatever you need it to imitate, it can do it.
What about you, Robert?
Well, I'm going to go probably off of what you guys would think, but any curly tail grub, like old school curly tail grub, I love them, and I don't really have
my language, buddy.
Yeah, I'm good with that. And then for the saltwater, there's a shrimp imitation soft bait called the DOA. Mm-hmm. And it has it has a weight that goes inside of the soft plastic, and for imitating a shrimp, there's nothing that looks more like that. So those are my two go-tos.
I love the grub too. Mr. Twisters. I still use Mr. Twisters all the time. 3-4 inch.
The number of times that I have been outfished by my dad with a white curly tail grub on his Zebco 33 is really frustrating to me.
Yeah. It is one of those baits. Like I talk about it all the time with rooster tails and stuff too. Like there are just fish catching baits that for some reason bass anglers have decided are beneath them, and we don't use them anymore. Like if you see someone throwing a grub, or you see someone throwing a rooster tail or a little Meps or Panther Martin or something, you're like, right. Like I'm not doing that. I'm gonna be over here throwing a big 3/8 ounce spinner bait instead. It's like, those are the best fish catching baits of all time. And we just, for some reason, we get really stubborn and we think of them as like beginner baits or kid baits or something like that. So bring them back out.
Beetle spin.
Beetle spin's another great example.
Yeah, it's right there with them.
Yep.
Yeah. I surprised Robert whenever we did our "What's your favorite" that one time about favorite like all-time favorite bait, and I said the Panther Martin.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're right. I mean, it can cast a mile, and everything with a mouth eats it. So,
anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter. Yeah.
all right.
You know what else? Like the little pre-rigged cream worms, even like stuff like that, where we look at like, nah, like I don't need that. It's like, those have caught more fish than we can imagine.
All right, your favorite hard bait.
Ooh, favorite hard bait. You can't use it all time of year, but it's got to be a popper. It's got to be, and I know they're expensive, and I know what people are gonna say. A Labina Lures Rico popper is. If I could only fish with one hard bait for the rest of my life, I think I would be okay with just not fishing in the winter to make sure that I can fish topwater the rest of the year. So yeah, I'm probably going to go like a 90 size popper for anything is going to be great. If I had a second hard bait, I mean like a 1.5 is great. That's a fun bite to get on. A buzz bait in general, like just watching something come up and absolutely kabloosh, a buzz bait that you're working parallel to a big like rock wall or something is awesome. But I guess if I had to pick one, it's popper.
I do love a popper.
Yeah. So much fun.
That's your go-to is it's not just any popper, a popper.
Yeah.
I do love the popper.
The Ricos are good too, and I like them.
They're expensive.
Yeah. I've never tried one, and the reason is because they're expensive, and I don't want.
You're afraid you'll like it. I know that feeling.
Yeah, for me though, nothing touches a square bill when it comes to hard baits. So,
what's your square bill choice?
The 6 Sense Crush is really good.
Yep.
But the Strike King 1.5, like that one
that's my go-to.
Is a really good one too. Like, I don't know that I have one that it's like it has to be this one.
Yeah.
I guess it's more color for me than anything, and that just like a chartreuse with a black back. Like
KVD special.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I use KVD 1.5s just because it's what I've used forever, and you get so used to it. I think there's a lot to be said for finding something you like and sticking with it because you know every little nuance of that bait. And now I'm going to talk out of the other side of my mouth for a second and say that it's always fun to try new stuff and you should be branching out. But when you just need to catch fish, when you're working with your confidence stuff, I know what that 1.5 is doing under the water at all times. I know on what type of line I can get to what depth. I know what a deflection looks like off certain things and what it feels like off certain things. So yeah, it's now the only thing is you break a lot of bills on 1.5s, which is frustrating, but it happens.
But that is why confidence baits are confidence baits.
Yep.
You want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, no, I'm going kind of the same as Andrew. I like the popper, but I would probably go a walking style topwater. And I throw a few different ones. So I like anything that walks across the top. And I'm going to throw whopper plopper in there too, because my first, when I cast that out, I treat it like a popper, and I've caught a ton of fish on those first two pops on a whopper plopper. And then you get I feel like maybe it's just me. I'm kind of lazy. I don't work that popper all the way back to the boat. Usually if or the kayak, if I'm throwing it at cover, I'm going 4 or 5 foot. Okay. I'm reeling it in. I'm trying to get that next zone. But for some reason, that action of the whopper plopper, obviously you got to reel it in, so there's no extra work that's working itself all the way back, and you probably catching a few extra fish. So any of that, anything topwater, buzzbait's in there too. I think it's just the action of it, and then that big red that I caught at the front of the summer was on a topwater, and it was on probably a whopper plopper. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was a whopper plopper, or it was a big topwater walking bait, one of the two. Something I had tied on, and I'm like, it rolled up in the distance, and I threw at it, and that joker hit it. So,
and Andrew, you have to understand, there's something special about a topwater bite from a red, because a red has an underslung mouth, so it's eating from the top of the surface, but like it has to be above the surface to really get it.
So it's full breaching to eat it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's kind of resembles a normal freshwater drum. I mean, it's a red drum, so that mouth is all the way on the bottom. But those things fight like crazy. But bass, that's one of my favorite bass lures too.
I will say this though: if you told me that I could only fish with a whopper plopper for the rest of my life, I would spend so much time in the emergency room.
The hooks are no joke.
What do you mean? What are you doing? Are you talking about the hooks on them?
Yeah.
No kidding. Huh.
Yeah. I think I see more people.
They're bruisers. Yeah.
Yeah. I see more people get hooked by whopper ploppers than any other bait.
Wow. Well, knock on wood, because now the next time I go out, I'm probably going to put one through my thumb, but I've never had that problem with those.
Yeah. They're stout hooks too. I don't know what they use on them, but
yeah,
no joke.
All right, and the last one from Chris is your favorite bladed bait.
What's really good is the Evo. Are you talking like bladed jigs or just bladed baits in general, like spinner baits and stuff too?
Bladed baits. I kind of took it as wire baits, but throw bladed jigs in there to it. So anything that's got a blade on it, it can be inline spinners, it can be spinner baits, beetle spins, however you want to take that. Underspins. There's a bunch of them now.
Okay. I'm gonna do one that's a selfish pick because it's my favorite thing to throw as far as a blade goes, and it's that little micro buzz. That little Jig Masters micro buzz is so much fun, and it gets so many bites around here. I had it happen the other day where I was throwing. I guess what is today? Today's Wednesday when we're recording this, so it probably would have been Monday because it would have been the holiday. So I was out and I was throwing, and they were smashing it in the morning, and then the sun got high, and I couldn't buy a bite on anything. And I finally started throwing that little micro buzz around, and I wasn't catching big fish, but I started catching fish every, maybe 5, 10, 15 casts. And it was just because it's something completely different that they don't see very often. Just that 3-inch profile that you can sort of wake and just have that, to, Robert's point, that 3-inch kind of Mr. Twister just dangling in their face that's, probably sitting this far below the surface of the water is awesome. So yeah, that or buzz baits in general. The other thing I've been really keen on over the past year or so is a smaller spinner bait. So I think we talked about it in this past week's episode. The minigun from Battle Baits is awesome. It is a very cool little bladed bait. I've actually got one. Hold on a second. These little finesse spinner baits, they're 3 inches long, and they are like palm of your hand small.
Yep.
Super cool little things. Again, when the rest of the world is out there throwing big 3/8 and half-ounce spinner baits, but I know for a darn fact, because I see what's in their mouth and in their gullet, that these fish are eating 2.5, 3.5 inch, bait fish and stuff, especially around here in the rivers and stuff, like our little darters and everything. They're not, choking 7-inch, 8-inch shad all day long. It's these small fish that are making up a big majority of their diet. So really downsizing stuff. So that's something that I've been really enjoying the past year or so, is these sort of small spinner baits, single blade, little fluted kind of willow blade on those that I really like.
Okay.
What about you guys?
Robert, do you is there any?
Yeah, no, I was going the same I was going the same route as Andrew. I've been throwing a Bassman, sort of knockdown, smaller spinnerbait for quite a while, and that's my favorite. It's become my favorite spinnerbait. It's a willow blade on the back. I was trying to look it up to see what the actual name of it was, but of course I can't find it at the moment. But Bassman makes it, but it's a willow blade on the back, Colorado blade on the front, and it's almost the same size as what you just held up. And then if you want to go bladed jigs, I'm partial to the Thunder Cricket. So
Okay.
Yep, I like that one. It's I don't know. I just think that it's people will tell you, the others catch more fish, but I don't think it does. But that's just me.
It's all confidence for the most
Well,
part.
it is,
Again,
and that's what I caught my
you're used to.
I caught my PB on a Thunder Cricket, so that's
Cool.
probably why I just go back to it because
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah. And I've made no secret about mine either. Mine is the bladed jig from Mr. B Lure Company. So instead of it having, like, I've got my pen here, instead of it having the jig head and then a split ring and then the blade, it's got a post that comes out. I don't know what, a quarter of an inch. And the blade is attached to the post, and it creates a ridiculous hunting action, and it's got a really solid thump to it. It does not have the click because the blade is not hitting the jig head, but it is. If everybody is throwing a jackhammer or a chatterbait, and you throw that in behind them, it looks completely different. And it's that, to Robert's point, that's what I caught my PB on last year. So I'm partial to that one. They also make one called the Slither. It's a EWG on a split ring, so that it kind of swings behind the blade. And that one has a really wicked action too.
And the sound is so important on stuff like that, where if everybody else in the world is throwing Z-Man and that blade is bang, 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 bang right on that head, and that's what they're used to hearing is that same clicking sound of all that stuff, then you come in with something that not only moves different, but sounds completely different. It's like switching it up from a rattling, square bill to a silent square bill and picking up those bites because you're a little bit more stealthy with that kind of stuff. That's the same thing with whopper ploppers. Robert was talking about whopper ploppers earlier. I saw it happen firsthand here about 2 years ago, where fish in our area stopped eating whopper ploppers as well as they did for like the first 4 or 5 years they were out, and they got hip to it. And it's that deep cupped pop that a whopper plopper has. So what a lot of people around here did, we switched to choppos, and choppos have a little different sound. It's kind of the same action, still proven, movement that they're used to, but it was a little bit thinner sound. And we saw those fish pick back up on those and start eating choppos a little bit again. So even if it's the same action, but it's just a little different sound, can make such the difference in the world, because those fish are going to get conditioned. If you catch a fish, every 3 days on something that sounds the exact same, eventually they start to get a little hip to it. And they're like, okay, they might still eat it, but they're going to be more reserved. They're going to be a little bit smarter, and they're not going to be as, I guess they're going to be a little bit more gun shy on something that sounds like that. So I think they can be conditioned a little bit. And I think that sound is equally as important as action a lot of times, but it's something that we overlook.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, we are going to start wrapping things up. What do you have coming up next for Tackle Talk that you want to share with the listeners?
So we've got next week's show. I'm recording it tomorrow, so hopefully everything goes through okay. I don't knock on wood, I guess, that hopefully this is what the next episode will be, but we do have a really cool episode coming up next week with it's a little bit more on the nerdy side. So we try and sprinkle some of those into, and this is going to be another one of those researchers that I can guarantee you no one has ever had on, a fishing podcast before. This is probably the first fishing podcast this guy's ever been asked to come on, but a really cool study that he had that came out, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago. And I'm a nerd, so I read fishing, scholarly studies on my lunch break or whatever as a sociopath nerd fishing guy does. And this was one I came across, and I finally found the guy's contact info, reached out to him. We got a date set. It'll be something that is I don't know how to put this. It's not a wives' tale, but it's something that a lot of us believe that might be debunked. So it'll be a pretty fun one, and coming at it from a non-biased, educational, scholarly research type approach to this, and doing a real study on it. So that one will be really cool. And then a little teaser: we have our 5-year anniversary coming up next month, and I've got something really cool planned for that. It's something that I've been working on for weeks now, and it's a lot of moving pieces. So that'll probably give you a little bit of a clue of what this episode could be. It's kind of like herding cats a little bit, but it's going to be maybe the coolest thing we've put out in a long time, if not in the 5 years. So I'm excited for that too.
So it's going to be better than the swimmies.
I think so. Yes.
I think it'd be better than the swimmies. Strong. That was pretty strong, I must say. That was
you should solid. See. I should post some of the messages and emails and stuff I get every year after the swimmies come out.
Yeah,
because it's like 2/3 everybody saying this is the funniest, awesome thing. Thanks for switching it up a little bit, and then there's like 1/3 of people that are a little salty. Your favorite brand or something gets called out, and it's like, guys, it's jokes. We do it once a year. It's okay.
Man, last year I had to pull the car over because I was laughing so hard at the. It was whenever you were doing the the time where we remember things. And
the in memoriam.
The in memoriam thing, and it was what's his name's sponsor relations,
Jacob Fouts.
Yeah. Oh man, I had to pull the car over for that one. Yeah. So if anyone is listening and they don't know where to find you, let them know how they can follow your adventures and listen to the podcast, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We are pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts. So if you listen on Apple or Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, Stitcher, I guess, wherever you can listen to podcasts, we're on there. So just search Tackle Talk. We do an episode every single Tuesday. I've also tried to get better of at least uploading the audio to YouTube, if nothing else more than, I guess there's an archive now of the shows, because I don't know what happens on Apple or Spotify once you hit certain numbers. I've seen things where maybe once you hit like 500 shows, it can only store 500. So I think the early ones might start dropping off or something. So I just wanted a place where they all at least lived forever. I know most people don't listen on YouTube. Hardly anybody does. It's not really where our audience is, but at least for the people that don't know what podcasts are, if you're, 114 and you don't know what Apple Podcasts is, well, you can get on YouTube and listen to if you want to. So it's on there as well. But every single Tuesday we put out a new episode, and we try and keep it interesting where you never know what you're going to tune in and listen to. And my promise is just, we're going to make it hopefully something worth listening to, where you're going to turn it off after 45 minutes or whatever and say, you know what, I at least have something else now to think about next time I go out fishing, or something to try, or a new lure that we mentioned, or just trying to provide you some sort of value in exchange for your time for 30 to 45 minutes a week. So yeah, hopefully everybody enjoys it, and we got no signs of slowing down, hopefully anytime soon. So
heck yeah. And I'll give you an open floor to plug sponsors and supporters. Anyone you want to give a shout out to, say thank you to. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Like you guys know, right? You can't do the show without support from somebody. I think a lot of people don't realize how expensive it can be to run something like this. I mean, you have to have a podcast host, which is the website that gets you on Apple or Spotify or iHeart or all those places. That costs money. Monthly fees for your website and your equipment and microphones and Zoom premium and like all these kind of things that add up, that people might look at like, whatever, it's $14 a month. But yeah, when you have 10 of those services that you need to keep this thing running, you can't do it without some sort of support. So yeah, American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors has been with us for probably 3 or 4 years now. They're fantastic. They're my favorite place to look for gear, because I feel good buying it from a Midwestern, kind of small local tackle store that's really trying to keep up with the big dogs and the big box stores, but they actually care about you, and you can email them or call them, or heaven forbid you ever have an issue, they'll bend over backwards to make sure that they make it right. Like, that stuff's important to me. So they do a great job with that. Dakota Lithium is the batteries that I've used and we've used for a couple years now too. And I mean, I beat the living tar out of them things, and they take it every time. So big shout out to them. And then Mossy Oak too came on this past year, and that's been a great partnership. They're great folks that not just care about the fishing side of things, but also just conservation in general. Like Mossy Oak does so much with the gamekeepers and with all of their different initiatives throughout the year to kind of, try and be a good advocate for both hunters and anglers. And they're doing a big push to help more on the angler side too. Everybody knows them from hunting, but on the fishing side too. So yeah, those are pretty much the three that we work with that kind of help us keep the lights on and keep the show going.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming back on. It's always a blast when we have you on, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Robert, let's go ahead, close this out. This has been a bit of a longer episode than normal. So let's go ahead and close it out. Did you have anything that you wanted to say before we prayed? All right.
Good to go. Go ahead.
Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this podcast and this opportunity to kind of try to reach people's lives for you and for your kingdom. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about burnout and how we can overcome that. Thank you for Andrew and what he means to so many and what he's doing with his podcast and his platform. Thank you for continuing to bless him and his show and his family, and continuing to give him an opportunity to be a positive light in somebody's life. Thank you for the listener, wherever they are right now, however long away from now this is, that they're hearing this. Pray that you meet them where they are, give them what they need through this podcast, and put a show on in their life, and in and through our lives in this show. God, we love you, and it is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.
Yeah. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Please consider supporting those that support us. Jade's Jigs lead-free finesse tackle. Use promo code FNF10 at jadesjigs.com for 10% off. Save your outdoors. Stop losing your gear. Use promo code FNFP15 at SaveYourOutdoors.com for 15% off. Omnia Fishing. Check out Premium, Premium Pro, and their Ambassador program. Use promo code FNF10 for 10% off at OmniaFishing.com. And if it's your first order, use promo code FNF15 for 15% instead. Mr. B Lure Company. High-quality handmade baits made right here in the U.S. MrBLureCompany.com. Use promo code faithnfishn pod for 15% off your first purchase. Get outdoors, pedal, and paddle. Check them out at the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or at shopgetoutdoors.com for all your paddling and cycling needs. And Nocqua Adventure Gear, lighting, power, and all the connectors at Nocqua.com. Please rate, review, subscribe on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.